I learned how to disappear long before I ever stepped inside a mafia boss's house. It started years ago, back when I still believed love meant safety and silence meant peace. By the time I became Elena Russo, professional nanny, polite employee, invisible presence, I had mastered the art of taking up as little space as possible. I walked softly. I spoke gently. I kept my eyes lowered. And I always wore long sleeves, even in summer, especially in summer. The Marino estate sat on the edge of the city like a fortress pretending to be a home. High iron gates, stone walls thick enough to keep out the world. Inside, everything was immaculate, expensive without being flashy, controlled without feeling cold. Power lived here, quiet and watchful. So did Luca Marino. Everyone in the city knew his name, even if they never said it out loud. Businessman, philanthropist, crime lord, depending on who you asked. To me, he was simply my employer, the father of a 6-year-old girl named Sophia, who had lost her mother far too young and her smile not long after. Sophia was the reason I stayed. She had a laugh that came out in bursts, like she was surprised by her own joy. She liked drawing animals with wings and insisted bedtime stories needed different voices for every character. When she held my hand, she held it tightly, like she was afraid I might disappear too. So I stayed, and I hid. That afternoon started like any other. Warm sun, light breeze, the faint scent of jasmine drifting through the garden. Sophia and I were seated on the stone steps near the fountain, her legs crossed, crayons scattered everywhere. Elena, she said seriously, do dragons have moms? I think they do, I replied, smiling. Very fierce ones. Good, she nodded, satisfied. Then they're not lonely. I swallowed and focused on helping her color inside the lines. She leaned too far, reaching for a blue crayon. The paper slipped. Her cup of lemonade tipped. Cold liquid splashed across my torso. I sucked in a sharp breath as the fabric of my blouse clung instantly to my skin. The pale cotton darkened, transparent in places I didn't want anyone to see. Sophia froze, eyes wide with guilt. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. It's okay, I said quickly, forcing calm into my voice while my heart slammed against my ribs. Accidents happen. But panic was already crawling up my spine. Wet fabric meant outlines. Outlines meant questions. I'll just go change, I added, standing too fast. Stay here, sweetheart. I walked, didn't run, through the side hallway that led to the staff rooms. Each step felt too loud. My pulse roared in my ears as I reached my room, locked the door, and pressed my forehead against it for a second. Breathe, Elena. I peeled the blouse off carefully. The scars were there as always, pale and jagged against my skin. Some thin and straight, others wide and uneven. They told a story I never spoke out loud anymore. I reached for a clean shirt. The door opened. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear a knock. Just the soft click of the handle and the sound of it swinging inward. Elena, have you? The voice stopped. So did my heart. I turned slowly. Luca Marino stood in the doorway. Tall, immaculate, still wearing his tailored suit despite the heat. Jacket removed, sleeves rolled to his forearms. Dark eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. Those eyes were fixed on me, on my bare arms, on my shoulder, on the map of scars I'd spent years hiding. For a split second, no one moved. I grabbed the clean shirt and pressed it to my chest, hands shaking. Heat rushed to my face. Shame burned hotter than fear. My voice cracked. I swallowed and tried again. I thought I locked the door. You did, he said quietly. I knocked. No answer. His gaze didn't wander, didn't soften, didn't harden either. It focused, studied, like he was memorizing every line. I'm sorry, he added, stepping back immediately. I'll come back later. The door closed. The click echoed like a gunshot. I collapsed onto the bed, clutching the fabric to my chest as if it could erase what he'd seen. My lungs refused to work properly. Every breath came out shallow and uneven. He saw them. After all this time, he saw them. Luca Marino wasn't a man who missed details. He was known for noticing things others overlooked and destroying people for underestimating him. I changed quickly, my fingers clumsy, and forced myself to return to the garden like nothing had happened. Sophia was still coloring. She looked up when she saw me. You okay? Yes, I lied, smiling. Just needed a dry shirt. The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze. I read stories. I played games. I laughed at the right moments. But I felt him. Watching. Not openly. Not obviously. But every time Luca passed through the room, my skin prickled. His presence pressed in on me like gravity. At dinner, he joined us, something he didn't always do. Sophia chattered happily, telling him about her dragon drawing and how I let her use the glitter crayons, even though they made a mess. He smiled at her. A real smile. Soft. Warm. Then his eyes flicked to me. Just for a second. And I knew. That night, after Sophia was asleep and the house grew quiet, I left through the staff exit like always. The city air felt heavy, charged. I didn't see Lucas standing in his office, watching my car disappear through the gates. I didn't hear him pick up his phone. Find everything you can about Elena Russo, he said calmly. Before she worked here. Before she became invisible. There was a pause. Yes, he added. Medical records. Police files. Everything. I drove home unaware that the past I'd buried was already being unearthed. And that by morning, nothing would ever be the same again. I barely slept. Every time my eyes closed, I saw Luca Marino's face in my doorway. Those dark, unreadable eyes fixed on my skin like he'd found a secret written in ink only he could read. I woke up twice with my throat tight, convinced I'd hear a knock, a summons, a quiet Miss Russo that would pull me into his office and into questions I didn't have the strength to answer. Morning arrived anyway, bright and cruel. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror longer than usual, buttoning a high-neck blouse and tugging the sleeves down until my wrists disappeared. I added a thin cardigan even though the forecast promised heat. My hair went into a neat bun. My face was calm, composed, harmless, invisible. When I reached the Marino estate, Teresa, the head housekeeper, greeted me with her usual brisk warmth. You're early, she said, handing me a mug of coffee as if she could sense my trembling from a mile away. Couldn't sleep, I lied. Teresa studied me for half a second. She was older, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who'd survived decades in homes full of secrets. Then she said nothing, only patted my shoulder and turned back to the stove. Sophia came running down the hall in her pajamas, hair a wild mess. Elena, she squealed, throwing her arms around my waist. I had a dream you turned into a dragon and ate the bad guys. I forced a laugh that sounded real enough. That's an excellent dream. You have to do it tonight too, she demanded. If I have another bad dream. Deal. She grabbed my hand and dragged me toward the breakfast nook, chattering nonstop. I focused on her voice like it was a lifeline, and I almost convinced myself yesterday hadn't happened. Almost, because then Luca walked in. He didn't announce himself. He never did. One moment the room belonged to Sophia and me and the clink of dishes. The next, the air shifted. Heavier, quieter, as if the house itself straightened its spine. Good morning, he said, voice smooth, controlled. Daddy. Sophia leapt from her chair and ran to him. He caught her easily, lifting her as if she weighed nothing, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Good morning, Tesoro. His eyes flicked to me over her shoulder. Not a stare, not a glare, a measurement. Good morning, Mr. Marino, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Elena, he replied, like my name meant something new. He set Sophia down and poured himself coffee. His sleeves were rolled up again. No jacket today. He looked like a man preparing for war disguised as routine. Sophia shoved her drawing in his hands. Look, my dragon is protecting the castle. Elena says dragons have moms. A wise woman, Luca said, and his gaze returned to me. My stomach tightened. I nodded once and focused on Sophia's plate, cutting her fruit into small pieces with deliberate calm. I want to go swimming today, Sophia announced, mouth full. It's hot. My knife paused. Swimming meant short sleeves. It meant wet fabric. It meant skin. We can do something else, I said quickly. We can. Swimming, Luca repeated, still calm, but there was a subtle edge now. The pool is open. Sophia clapped. Yes. My pulse kicked up. I'm not really. You're her nanny, Luca said softly. If she's in the pool, you'll be near her. It wasn't a threat, Not exactly. It was a reminder. He was in control here. I felt Teresa's eyes on me from the kitchen doorway, curious and concerned, but she didn't interfere. Of course, I managed. We'll go later. Luca sipped his coffee as if nothing had happened, but I could feel his attention like heat on the back of my neck. After breakfast, Sophia wanted to build a castle out of couch cushions in the family room. I helped her stack pillows, pretending the ordinary mattered more than the fear buzzing under my skin. Luca disappeared into his office. I tried not to wonder what he was doing inside it. By noon, Sophia was restless and cranky from the heat. She begged for the pool again, tugging my sleeve and pouting so hard her lip trembled. Please, Elena. Please. I'll be good. I couldn't say no. Not without making it suspicious. So I found a long-sleeve swim top in the staff supply closet. Black. Athletic. The kind meant for sun protection. It covered most of my arms, but not all. Not the scars near my shoulder. I told myself I could keep my back turned. I told myself I could keep my distance. I told myself a lot of things. We stepped out to the pool area, bright blue water glinting under the sun. 2 security men stood by the far gate, pretending they weren't watching every shadow. Sophia squealed and ran toward the shallow end, already stripping off her sandals. I set the towel down, heart hammering, and forced my voice to stay light. Slowly, no running. She threw herself into the water with a splash that soaked my legs. She popped up laughing, hair slicked to her head. Come in, she called. I'll watch from here, I said. Sophia's face fell. But you promised you'd play. I hadn't. But in her mind, caring meant joining. I swallowed. Okay. Just a little. I stepped into the water. It was cool enough to steal my breath. And for a few seconds it almost felt good, like the pool could wash away the panic, the past, the weight of Luca's gaze. Sophia paddled toward me, wrapping her arms around my waist. You're my favorite, she announced. My chest ached. I'm honored, princess. She giggled. Daddy calls me that. I froze. Tyler used to call me that. The same word. Different man. Different world. But the sound of it in my mouth felt wrong, like touching a bruise. Let's play mermaids, Sophia demanded, oblivious. We played. We splashed. We laughed. I kept my back turned toward the house, toward the cameras, toward everything. It still wasn't enough, because when Sophia climbed onto my shoulders, squealing, her small hands grabbed my swim top and tugged. The fabric slipped. A strip of skin near my shoulder blade flashed in the sun. Scars. I felt it instantly. Air against the pale ridges, exposure like a cold knife. And then Sophia yelled, loud and innocent. Elena, what happened to your back? My breath stopped. Time slowed. I turned, searching for an escape I already knew didn't exist. Because Luca Marino was standing at the edge of the pool, watching. He didn't look shocked. He looked certain, like he just found the final piece of a puzzle. Sophia pointed again, louder this time. Did someone hurt you? Luca's eyes locked on mine. His voice was soft when he spoke, soft enough to terrify me more than shouting. Elena, he said, we need to talk. And before I could answer, one of the security men hurried across the patio with a phone in his hand, face pale. Boss, the guard said urgently, we have a situation. Someone's at the gate asking for Elena Russo by name. My blood turned to ice. My heart dropped so hard it felt like it cracked against my ribs. Someone was asking for me. By name. At the gate. I didn't need to look at Luca to know his entire body had gone still. The air around him sharpened, like a blade being drawn slowly from its sheath. Take Sophia inside, he said calmly. But I started. Now, he repeated, not raising his voice, but leaving no room for argument. Sophia sensed the shift immediately. She clung to my arm, water dripping onto the stone tiles. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile that felt like it might shatter. Let's get you dried off. Luca nodded once at a nearby guard. Stay with them. We wrapped Sophia in a towel and hurried inside through the side doors. I could feel eyes on us, security, cameras, invisible systems I'd never thought much about before. Systems that now felt like the only thing standing between me and my past. As soon as Sophia was settled in the family room with Teresa and cartoons, Luca turned to me. Who would ask for you? He asked. I shook my head too quickly. I don't know. Maybe a delivery mistake. Or, Elena, he interrupted gently. Don't lie to me. The kindness in his tone nearly broke me. I don't know, I repeated, this time softer. But I have a bad feeling. He studied my face like he was reading a report only he could see. Then he reached for his phone. Bring them inside, he told someone. But keep distance. My stomach twisted. Inside. If they're asking for you, he said evenly, they're not leaving until I know why. We didn't wait long. The man who walked into the house wasn't Tyler, but the sight of him still made my skin crawl. Mid-30s. Clean cut. Polite smile that never touched his eyes. He wore a delivery jacket and carried a slim envelope. Elena Russo, he asked pleasantly. I nodded before I could stop myself. I have something for you, he said, extending the envelope. No return address. Luca stepped forward and took it instead. That'll be all, he said. The man hesitated. She has to sign. She won't, Luca replied. Something in his voice made the man back away without another word. The door closed. Silence fell. Luca turned the envelope over once, twice, then opened it. I didn't need to read the card to know, because Luca's jaw tightened in a way that told me everything. He handed it to me. 2 words, written in handwriting I recognized instantly. Miss you. No name. No signature. My hand started shaking. He found me, I whispered. Luca's eyes snapped back to my face. Who? I swallowed. My ex. The word tasted bitter. Incomplete. My abuser, I corrected. That changed something. Not explosively. Not dramatically. But the temperature in the room dropped. How long? Luca asked. Almost 2 years since I left him, I said. I thought he stopped looking. Men like that don't stop, Luca said quietly. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. I'm aware. He gestured toward his office. Sit. I obeyed without thinking. He didn't sit behind his desk. Instead, he leaned against it, arms crossed, giving me his full attention. Start from the beginning, he said, and don't skip anything. So I told him. Not everything. Not the worst details, but enough. About the control. The isolation. The punishment disguised as love. About how I ran. Changed my name. Built a life where I stayed small and quiet because being invisible felt safer than being seen. And the scars, he asked. I hesitated, then nodded. They're from him. Luca exhaled slowly through his nose. How did he find you? I don't know, I admitted. I was careful. No social media. No shared contacts. I thought. Someone helped him, Luca said. That made my blood run cold. Helped him how? Luca straightened. Elena, do you know who I am? The question wasn't arrogant. It was factual. Yes, I said. I'm not stupid. Then you understand this, he continued. People watch me. Everyone connected to me. My staff. My child. You. I stared at him. You think this has something to do with you? I know it does, he replied. My chest tightened. I never meant to put Sophia in danger. You didn't, he said immediately. But danger has a way of finding cracks. He picked up his phone and made a call without looking away from me. Lock down the estate, he said. No one in or out without my approval. I want eyes on every gate. He hung up and turned back to me. You're not leaving, he said. I wasn't planning to, I snapped, panic flaring. I won't run again. That's not what I meant, he said. You're not leaving because you're under my protection now. I stood abruptly. I didn't ask for that. I know. I don't want to be another problem you have to manage. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head to meet his eyes. You are not a problem, he said firmly. You are a responsibility I take seriously. The words wrapped around me like something solid, dangerous, comforting. I need to know, I said quietly, what you're planning to do. First, he said, I find out how he located you. Then I make sure he never gets close to you again. And if he doesn't stop? Luca's gaze darkened. Then I stop him. A shiver ran through me. Not fear, exactly. Something else. Something like relief. We were interrupted by a soft knock. Teresa peeked in, worry etched deep into her face. Sophia's asking for Elena, she said. She's scared. I looked at Luca, torn. Go to her, he said. I'll handle this. I hesitated. Luca. Elena, he corrected gently. Trust me. That word again. Trust. I went to Sophia, sat beside her on the couch, let her curl into my side like a small, warm anchor. She didn't ask questions. She just needed me there. But my mind stayed in Luca's office, with the envelope, with the scars, with a man powerful enough to tear the city apart if he decided someone had crossed the line. That night, when I finally left, security walked me to my car. And I knew deep down, cold and certain, that whatever Luca Marino discovered next would change everything. I should have stayed home that night. I knew at the moment I turned the key in my apartment door and stepped inside, heart still racing from everything that had happened at the estate. The silence felt too loud, the air too still. My instincts, those hard-earned, painful instincts, were screaming at me. But I was exhausted, and exhaustion makes you careless. I locked the door behind me, dropped my bag on the chair, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood for a second, forcing myself to breathe. Luca's words replayed in my mind. You're under my protection now. I didn't know how to feel about that. Gratitude tangled with fear. Relief mixed with guilt. I'd spent years rebuilding my life around the idea that I needed no one. That dependence was dangerous. That trusting the wrong man once had nearly destroyed me. And now here I was, anchored to one of the most dangerous men in the city. I pushed the thoughts away and went through my routine. Shower, tea, lights dimmed low. I sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, when a message popped up from an unknown number. Are you sleeping yet? My stomach clenched. I didn't need to ask who it was from. I stared at the screen, fingers frozen, pulse roaring in my ears. Logic told me not to respond. Therapy told me this was exactly the kind of bait I should never take. But fear has a way of overriding logic. Who is this? I typed. The reply came instantly. You didn't think you could disappear forever, did you? I dropped the phone like it burned me. My chest tightened, breath coming fast and shallow. The room felt smaller, the walls closer. Memories surged uninvited, raised voices, locked doors, the smell of heat and metal. I forced myself to pick the phone back up with shaking hands. Don't contact me again. If you do, I'll go to the police. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then the phone rang. I didn't answer. It rang again, and again. I shut it off completely and sat there in the dark, arms wrapped around myself, waiting for something terrible to happen. It didn't. Not that night. But by morning, I knew that silence didn't mean safety. When I arrived at the Marino estate the next day, the change was immediate. More guards, different faces, vehicles I hadn't seen before positioned discreetly along the perimeter. The gates took longer to open. Cameras tracked every movement. Luca was already waiting inside. Elena, he said as soon as he saw me. Come with me. No greeting. No small talk. My pulse spiked. Is Sophia? She's fine, he said quickly. This is about you. That didn't help. His office felt different today too. Sharper. Darker. A storm brewing under the surface. Sit, he said. I did. He didn't. I need to ask you something, he continued. And I need you to be honest. I nodded, throat tight. Did he contact you? My silence was answer enough. When? Luca pressed. Last night, I admitted. A text. Then a call. His jaw tightened. What did he say? I told him. All of it. Luca listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. But I noticed his hands, how they curled slowly into fists at his sides. When you left him, he said carefully, did you file a report? Yes, I said. A restraining order. It expired when I moved. And medical records? Yes. Good, he said. Something about that word made my skin prickle. What does that mean? I asked. It means I have leverage, he replied. I stood. Luca, I don't want you doing something illegal because of me. He finally looked at me, then really looked. Elena, he said quietly, everything I do is illegal. The difference is why. That shut me up. I've already had my people dig into him, he continued. He didn't find you by accident. Someone fed him information. My stomach dropped. Who? That's what we're confirming, he said. But it wasn't random. And it wasn't cheap. I shook my head. I don't understand. He doesn't have money. Or connections. He does now, Luca said. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were photographs. Me, walking Sophia to the car. Me at the grocery store. Me leaving my apartment. Taken from angles I'd never noticed. My breath caught. He was watching me. Yes. For how long? Luca met my eyes. Long enough. A wave of nausea rolled through me. I put Sophia in danger. No, Luca said sharply. He did. I hugged myself. I should leave. Go somewhere else. I won't let him use me to get to you or Sophia. Luca stepped closer, lowering his voice. That's exactly what he wants. I looked up at him. He wants you isolated. Afraid. Running, Luca continued. Leaving my protection makes you easier to reach, not safer. I laughed weakly. You make it sound like staying here is the safest option. It is, he said without hesitation. I searched his face for doubt. There was none. Then what happens now? I asked. Now, he said. I make it clear that you are untouchable. That word again. Untouchable. How? I whispered. By finding him, Luca replied. And ending the threat. A chill ran through me. Ending how? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. A knock interrupted us. One of the guards leaned in. Boss. We confirmed the source. Luca turned slightly. Who? The Volkov group, the guard said. Your rivals. They hired him as an informant. He gave them access. They gave him resources. My head spun. I don't even know them. You don't need to, Luca said. They know me. And I'm what? Collateral? I asked bitterly. No, Luca said firmly. Your leverage they thought they could use. I swallowed. What happens if they don't stop? Luca looked at me then with an intensity that stole my breath. They will. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I spoke. I don't want Sophia to see any of this. She won't, he promised. I won't let this touch her. And me? I asked. His gaze softened just slightly. That depends, he said quietly, on whether you trust me. I hesitated. Trust had once nearly killed me. But something in Luca's voice, steady, unwavering, made me nod. I trust you, I said. That was the moment everything shifted. Because when I said those words, Luca Marino stopped treating me like a responsibility and started treating me like something precious, something worth going to war for. Trust is a dangerous thing. I learned that once in the worst possible way, standing barefoot on a kitchen floor while someone who claimed to love me explained why pain was my fault. Trust was what kept me quiet back then. Trust was what almost erased me. And now I was trusting again. Not blindly, not softly, but deliberately. The Marino estate became something else over the next 48 hours. It wasn't obvious to Sophia. She still laughed, still argued about bedtime, still insisted on wearing mismatched socks, but to anyone who knew how to look, the house had shifted into lockdown mode. Guards rotated more frequently. Vehicles changed routes. Even the air felt different, tighter, alert. I stayed close to Sophia, sleeping in the guest room down the hall from hers at Luca's insistence. He said it was temporary. I didn't ask what temporary meant in his world. The message came on the third night. Not to me. To Luca. We were in the kitchen after Sophia went to bed. The lights low. The hum of the refrigerator the only sound. I was washing dishes I didn't need to wash. My nerves too restless to sit still. Luca leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. Then he stopped. His entire posture changed. What? I asked quietly. He looked up, eyes dark. He's tired of waiting. My chest tightened. Waiting for what? For me to respond, Luca said. For you to run. For something. He turned the screen toward me. A photo. Blurry. Taken from inside a car. It was my apartment building. Attached was a single line of text. You have 24 hours. My knees nearly buckled. I gripped the edge of the sink to stay upright. 24 hours to do what? I whispered. To give him what he wants, Luca replied. Me. The word hung unspoken between us. I shook my head. No, we don't negotiate with him. We don't, Luca agreed calmly. Then why does he think this will work? Because he's desperate, Luca said. And desperate men make mistakes. I turned to face him. Luca, what are you planning? He hesitated. Just a fraction. That scared me more than if he'd answered immediately. I can end this, he said carefully. Cleanly. And the Volkovs? I asked. You said this could start something bigger. It could, he admitted. Or it could send a message. My pulse pounded. At what cost? He held my gaze. That's what I'm trying to avoid. I took a breath. Then let me help. His eyes snapped to mine. No, I'm not asking to run, I said quickly. I'm asking to stop being the thing everyone moves around. Elena. He wants me, I pressed. If I disappear, he escalates. If you kill him outright, the Volkovs retaliate. But if he thinks he's winning, if he exposes himself. Luca went very still. You're suggesting bait, he said. I'm suggesting control, I replied. On our terms. The silence stretched. Then he laughed once, sharp and incredulous. You have no idea how dangerous that would be. I do, I said. I've lived with him. I know how he thinks. Luca stepped closer, his voice low and intense. And you think I would ever put you in that position? I think, I said quietly, that you already are. Just indirectly. That hit him. I saw it in his eyes. You told me you handle threats, I continued. Let me be part of how this one is handled. Not the victim. Not the prize. He searched my face like he was looking for a crack. A weakness he could use to argue me out of it. He didn't find one. Finally, he exhaled slowly. If we do this, he said, you follow my rules. Exactly. I nodded. I wouldn't expect anything else. The plan came together fast. Too fast. That was how I knew it was real. Luca's people moved with military precision, setting up surveillance, choosing locations, running contingencies. I was fitted with a tracker so small I couldn't feel it, an earpiece hidden in my hair, and a light protective vest under my clothes. You're still human, Luca reminded me. This isn't a movie. I met his gaze. Neither's what he did to me. He didn't argue after that. We told him, through an untraceable channel, that I would meet him alone. One location, 1 hour before the deadline, an abandoned parking structure near the river, open enough to watch, closed enough to trap. The night of the meeting, Sophia hugged me harder than usual before bed. You'll be back for breakfast? She asked sleepily. Yes, I said, forcing the word to sound like truth. I promise. Luca watched us from the doorway, his face unreadable. The drive was silent. I sat in the back of the SUV, hands folded tightly in my lap, counting my breaths the way my therapist taught me. Luca sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. If you change your mind, he said quietly, we turn around. I won't, I replied. I know. That scared me too. The parking structure loomed ahead, concrete and shadow, the river reflecting city lights like broken glass. The SUV stopped. This is where you get out, Lucas said. I looked at him. You'll be there. Every second, he promised. I stepped out alone. The echo of my footsteps sounded too loud in the empty structure. My phone buzzed once. Lower level. Red pillar. I walked. And then I saw him. He stepped out of the shadows like he owned them. Same posture. Same smile that once convinced me pain was love. Elena, he said warmly. You look good. I didn't answer. I knew you'd come, he continued. You always did what I asked. Eventually, I forced my voice steady. What do you want? He laughed softly. You. And maybe a message sent. I took another step forward, my heart pounding. You already sent it, I said. And somewhere above us, unseen and waiting, Luca Marino prepared to end a war. The moment I stood face to face with him again, I understood something with terrifying clarity. Tyler hadn't changed at all. Same eyes, same smile, same certainty that the world and I owed him something. You're quiet, he said, tilting his head as if studying a familiar possession. I liked you better when you begged. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to stay still. Calm, controlled. That's not going to work anymore, I said. He laughed, genuinely amused. You always said things like that. Right before you gave in. I felt Luca's presence through the earpiece. Not his voice, just the steady silence that told me he was there, watching every breath, every shift of weight. You didn't come alone, Tyler added suddenly. My pulse spiked. What makes you think that? I asked. You never were brave on your own, he said lightly. Someone's protecting you now. Big, powerful someone. That mafia boss you work for. My blood went cold. So you do know, I said. Oh, I know a lot, Tyler replied. The Volkovs pay very well for information, and they're very interested in Luca Marino. My jaw tightened. You're a pawn. His smile faltered just a fraction. No, he snapped. I'm leverage. I took a step closer, forcing myself into his space. They'll discard you the moment you're useless. He stared at me, eyes flickering with something like doubt. They already have, I continued softly. Did they tell you they'd protect you? Or did they just promise money? Silence. I saw it then, the crack. The fear he'd always hidden behind control. You don't matter to them, I said. You never mattered to me either. That did it. His face twisted, rage bubbling to the surface. You think you're better than me now, because you found a new man. I swallowed. I found myself. He lunged. The sound came first, a sharp crack that echoed through the structure. Tyler collapsed mid-step, hitting the concrete hard. I screamed despite myself, backing away as armed men poured in from every direction, shadows becoming soldiers. Luca was there in seconds, hands on me, turning my body toward him, shielding me. Are you hurt? He demanded. I shook my head, breath coming in gasps. He said the Volkovs. I know, Luca said grimly. We intercepted everything. Tyler groaned on the ground, still alive, blood dark against the concrete. Luca looked down at him with cold precision. You made a mistake, Luca said quietly. You touched what's mine. Tyler laughed weakly. You think this ends with me? Luca crouched, voice calm and lethal. No, it starts with you. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Luca stood and turned away before I could say anything. He'll live, he said. Long enough to testify. The Volkovs are finished. The world spun. Finished. Just like that. 3 weeks later, the city felt different. Quieter. The news called it a major organized crime collapse. Multiple arrests. Seized assets. Anonymous tips that dismantled an entire network. No one mentioned me. That was intentional. Sophia returned to school. She laughed more. Slept through the night. She started drawing dragons again, this time with crowns.